It's been a rough week to get pressing with it, and this is a really long chapter, so I'm probably going to split it into two, just for time's sake and everything. And got a pretty good stopping point and a lot covered that we can go through for today. But first, let's recap last week. So Mark 13. That one's a pretty important chapter, and it's a lot of I don't want to say discrepancies, but a lot of different ways to take the things, different opinions, different definitions and stuff like that. Some of which are right, some of which are wrong, some are way out in left field. I don't know where they're coming from, but it's getting to a point where some of it's making a little bit more sense, as we go on, as I'm sure a lot of the Bible did. A lot of things started to make more sense once Jesus came, and they had a completely different conception of what he was going to look like. So, right off the bat, they were like marveling at the buildings, and Jesus said, there shall not be left one stone upon another that should not be thrown down. And 70 years later, or after Jesus died, around 70 years later, there was the Jewish revolt, where they revolted against Rome. Rome came in and cleaned house, wiped it out, and literally knocked every stone down. There was not any stones. Herod's temple, the Temple Mount, all kinds of other structures just knocked down from it. So, one came true right after he said it. And two, just some definition recaps. Abomination, so that comes from bedelugma or whatever. And it's destitution, idolatry, abomination. But it denotes an object of disgust and abomination. So, something that's so disgusting, so evil in God's eyes that it's just revolting. Probably just think of the worst thing you can imagine. Abomination, the worst thing imaginable to God. So desolation comes from iramu, or iremo, from to lay waste, bring to desolate. And that signifies to make desolate, lay waste, from the primary sense of making quiet or making lonely. So the abomination, something so awful in God's eyes that it makes the temple, or where it should not be, quiet or empty, desolate. And perdition comes from presumed ruin or loss, so destruction, damnable. And apoleia is what the word is. It means loss of well-being or not of being. And that comes from the son of perdition that comes up, what he's talking about, kind of similar to the Antichrist. So son of loss of well-being, not of being, kind of in that sense. So this one was interesting when I was looking this one up. This is what really stuck with me and kind of spooked me a little bit, kind of creeped me out. But so affliction, it comes from thlipsis, and it translates directly to pressure. So this word primarily means a pressing pressure, literal and figurative. So affliction's pretty bad, and it says in those days there will be afflictions such as the world has never seen before or will see. But everywhere else says tribulation. So when we go to that tribulation word, though, it wasn't up here, but it's the same definition. It comes from the same exact word, meaning of pressure. We're going to go through a great tribulation. We're going to go through a great pressure. Things are getting pretty pressured on us right now. And I'm not saying this is the end times. I'm not saying that's the son of perdition or anything. I'm not saying that just because the churches are left empty right now and feeling lonely right now and you're not allowed to go to it because of something you can't even see coming, it means that's the Antichrist, or that's what it's talking about. But it's pretty close. It might be like a little foreshadowing or a preview to kind of what's happening to it. So, and a lot of people are talking when they go over this about like, well, Jesus, and Eric's preached about this, can come back at any time, or we're waiting for Jesus to come back. I'm just going to lay it out to you step by step in Mark. If you want to go into it further, you can go into Revelations and go back to Daniel and a couple of the other ones. They give a little bit more kind of an outline or a summarized version in Mark. Before Jesus comes back, take heed lest any man deceive you. Jesus said that. And then he said, many will come claiming to be Christ and shall deceive many. There's already been people who come and claim to be Jesus. Some people followed him. Some people believed in him. There's a bunch of other religions that were started after Christianity, and people are turning to that. So wars and rumors of wars have to happen, but the end is not yet. And don't worry about them. says, "Be not troubled." That these things have to happen, and there's been plenty of wars since then. Like probably tens of thousands of different wars if you're counting even the small forces. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, earthquakes, famines, and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. We've had all these. So nation against nation happens a lot in every war. Kingdom against kingdom, which is kind of the old school, but there's still kingdoms and stuff like that. Earthquakes everywhere. It says in diverse places, but there's been earthquakes everywhere, all over the world. Famines, troubles. There's people starving right now. There's countries right now that are in a food shortage, starving to death. I would have picked some out if it would have been that, on me at the time. But they really are going through famines right now. And troubles, of course, everybody's got trouble. So the gospel must first be published among all nations, not preached, not spread, published. Published meaning in writing to all nations. So check on that one. That one's happened. Brother betray brother to death, and the father the son. And the children shall rise up against their parents, causing them to be put to death. So we've had brother betraying brother. Even Judas betrayed Jesus, as we're about to go through all this. And the father the son. What kind of dad would betray their own son? When you think about it. Like, hey, this is my son, he's doing that. And I was kind of thinking about it. Like a father betraying his son, I'd be really upset if dad did something and betrayed me like that. But if you look at what it's talking about here, and the father, the son, and children rising up against their parents, how many, I think a good way to word this, if I don't care enough about what my child's doing, that they can go out and do all this weird, crazy stuff and become who they want to be and have the freedom to be that, I'm not being a good father. And that's why you're getting a lot of these troubles and stuff, because the parents aren't up there disciplining and beating them up and kind of I know bullying is not really a good thing, but sometimes, especially when it's coming from a parent's figure, it can do a kid a lot of good. I'm sure I've been straightened up from being weird a few times from some bullies and all that, so I don't really hate bullies. That's my just personal opinion and everything. But so, and the children shall rise up against their parents. They are doing that right now, causing them to be put to death. Don't know if they're being put to death yet, but maybe. So, and we shall be hated for Jesus, but he that shall endure till the end shall be saved. I don't care if somebody hates me for Jesus. If there's one thing on earth somebody can make fun of me for, and I just do not care at all, it is that I'm a Christian and that I believe in Jesus. You come up, oh, you believe in Jesus, ha ha. Ooh, golly, you got me. I'm sure you're going to go home and cry about it. But if you endure till the end, it shouldn't be that hard except for the pressure and the struggles and all that. And if it gets to the point we can't buy food and everything, like it's kind of hinting towards, oh well, we'll deal with it then, but I'm not gonna, not.
Tyler, I was going to say that if you think about, for example, the Muslim religion, a lot of people within Muslim religion that get converted to Christianity, even their own parents will kill them.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a very good point. So Muslims, if you convert to Christianity, you are shunned by even your parents, and your parents do kill you a lot of times in the other places. So that's a good point to bring up. So that is happening right now.
Okay, let's look at all the babies that are being killed by their parents. I mean, physically.
Hey, yep, abortion, babies getting killed by
Abortion's
parents.
one, but I'm saying they're alive and put their neck, put their knee on their neck, or just kill the child.
Yeah,
That
it's
is-
been found in a trash can.
Yes, I mean, that had to be the mother.
You did have to be the mother to do that, and
Yes.
I think it's a total disrespect for life.
it is a total disrespect for life. I do agree with you. And a lot of people will bring up the argument, it's about to get deep in here, so a lot of people will bring up the argument and stuff like, well, what if the woman was raped? That's awful. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't wait 3 months. They got Plan B pills. You can go get that taken care of immediately. If you don't have the means to,
But the other side of that, too, is don't punish a child for what the father did.
yeah, and don't punish the child for what the father did. I don't have to think
Don't
about, and
punish
it
a child for what the father did. That's the reason for no abortion.
it would be really hard for me to think about what would I do if I was pregnant, because my mind doesn't work like that, because I will never be pregnant. So it doesn't really think of that. So I can't speak for the women in that sense, but I mean, you are right. you do a lot. Okay, so 99% of abortions come from, whoops. You know, I was doing my own thing, and good thing I got a cop out for it and stuff like that. That's where it gets really evil and stuff. So even the controversial issues about it, you're talking about like a very small few, a very little window, 1%, things like that. I'm not saying it's exactly 1%, but very low margin of the people that have to deal with that part.
1 in 4 women have had an abortion in the United States.
1 in 4. Maybe.
You know, in China, they're just allowed one child per family.
Yeah, they do have.
The pastor, where I used to go to church, he brought the paper in, the newspaper, and anything over 1, they take the fetus out, and that, believe it or not, they eat it for a delicacy.
I absolutely believe that, and that is happening a lot. Why do you think that, like, abortions and stuff like that happen? Why do you think it's so openly pushed and openly available and welcome? You can't go to church. You can't go to Walmart. You can't go to this place, that place. Abortion clinics never closed. Not once. They didn't close for any of that. Maybe 1 or 2 did. They were open the whole time. They were essential. How is that essential to me? I don't really know. But, and like, you know, he was just saying in China you are limited to a certain amount of kids you can have, and over that you're government forced to have an abortion for that. So sometimes it's not even their choice. And
Well, what happens a lot of times, the abortion gives you baby parts to sell. And
That was
that's
a big
issue.
controversy a while back.
yeah, the
They
organ
actually-
harvesting from
Yes.
children and stuff like that.
And the video of it was documented. They were talking about how many thousands of dollars they made, millions of dollars they made.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
And-
sure that happens in China.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of cases even where you see they keep the child alive. They abort it, but if they can, they'll keep it alive for as long as possible until it's sold
Yes.
to get it fresher. That's pure wicked evil, and it's a weird rabbit hole to go down, and you won't come out the same if you go down too deep. So, but
Can we go back to the word kingdom? Okay,
I don't have it up here.
I know, but
So,
kingdom,
kingdom.
you know, we don't use that term. This is something that I've been pursuing. But kingdom is what God and all the Hebrew people referred to was the word kingdom. That's gonna come into play at the end times as you're speaking. It's kingdom. If you study all the 7 kingdoms that came about and the one that is to come for a short period of time, and then the 1,000-year reign, okay, those kingdoms, if you study them, they'll point you and give you pointers and directions to where this last kingdom will come from. So kingdom is an important thing that is not in our tradition, but is an important concept in our future.
Well, they're going to rise against each other. Just went over that kingdom and stuff. And I haven't looked into like the 7 kingdoms of before and all that. Maybe not 7 churches of Asia, but some
Yeah,
argue
it's different.
kingdom with kingdom from different one. But kingdom is a kind of a cool word. Mickey uses it a lot. Like, oh, you got to win souls for the kingdom that is to come. And there is a kingdom to come. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's going to come. So wherever it's at, I'm sure. I'm trying to get there. So.
Well, the Lord's going to reign over it. Jesus
Yeah.
is going to reign over His kingdom.
It is the New Jerusalem, they call it, and stuff like that. So, got you on that kingdom. We're all on the same page with that one. I'm pretty sure in here. So, here's where it gets. Why I went over those definitions before. Abomination of desolation, standing where it ought not. And in Matthew it says standing in the temple. It's not supposed to be in the temple. If it's in God's house and it's an abomination, not supposed to be there. Standing where it ought not. And then here's where the only place I've found or seen so far in the Bible where it stops and says, "Let he who readeth understand." Like, hey, this is very important. I don't know who put that in there because it's not in red letters. Jesus didn't say it, but somebody when this was made and it's been around for a very long time said, "Whoa, take a second. Read this part very, very carefully." Standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand that. And then it says, "Flee into the mountains and not look back." Paraphrasing. So it says, "Those who are being in Judea, flee into the mountains. If you're in a field, don't look back. If you're on a rooftop, don't even go back in your house." This means like once you see this happen, get out, get to somewhere. Come to a church if you can find one open. Just go somewhere where don't look back at it. So false prophets in Christ shall show signs and wonders. People are going to come out. It's going to be suffering hard times. What if you've been starving? You're going through this. As the world's going crazy and like we're really at it. Somebody comes up and he was like, as Jesus fed the multitudes, I'll take this fish and this piece of bread. And then he starts feeding everybody from just that. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, is Jesus coming back? No, it's not. No, it's not. And we don't really have a cop-out anymore. If you see a miracle and you believe in it and you think it's Jesus, Jesus has spoken in 23, and you've already been warned. So you can blame me if you want to. Be like, Tyler shouldn't have warned me about that. That's why I have plausible deniability. Well, Jesus warned us, so let me see. We'll read that exactly to you. I didn't write it down there. But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. That was Jesus. That's what Jesus said about it. So after the tribulation, after,
Wait, before?
not before, not during, after. What does tribulation mean? Affliction, a pressure, all that. So after the tribulation, this goes all the way to the end here. The sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, stars of heaven shall fall, powers in heaven shall be shaken. All these things. I mean, this is crazy. The sun, look outside right now. You see sunlight? Jesus ain't coming yet. At night, when the moon's shining down on you, you look up, see a moon? Not coming yet. Also, you look up and there are stars and they're not falling down at you scarily. That'd be so scary seeing stars just falling everywhere. You'd know something was really up. And the powers in heaven shall be shaken. None of that's happened yet. You can look up and see all that. (26) And then, after, if you look up and heaven's not shaking, and this is probably going to happen fast. I don't think the sun's going to go out. 4 years later, the moon's going to go out. 10 years later, the stars start falling. I think once the sun's out, moon's out, it might be at least a day long because you can't see the sun and moon at the same time, so the sun's not out. Or it could just be the same time, just different parts of the earth. I don't know, depends on how you want to look at it. But when they go out and stars start falling, things are getting crazy, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. All that's going to go down first. Jesus can't come back right now or in 10 minutes unless the sun goes black and things just start going crazy. It's not going to be a secret. He's going to come back as a thief, but it doesn't mean he's going to sneak back in. It's coming back as a thief, as in if you knew when a thief was going to come, you'd be setting up ready for him. That's what he was kind of telling you to do. Hey, coming back. Be ready for that, right?
I've got a thought on that. You know when you go to the movie theater to watch a rated G movie, because that's all we watch is rated G movies.
Yeah.
How when you're in the movie theater and all of a sudden they're getting ready to start everything, the lights go down and then the presentation comes up. It may be like that. It may be Jesus turns the lights off and then says, "Here I am."
Ooh, yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you can hear in the back yet, but for video purposes, so imagine when you go to the movie, it better be a G movie, he said.
Yeah.
So you're at the movies, and then you go into the theater, you're sitting down and everything, and then when the movie's about to start, the lights go down. That could be why the sun and the moon are going down. Lights go down because the show's about to start and the screen gets lit. So that's a pretty good analogy, I thought. Alright, so then we give another fig tree. Jesus likes using fig trees. I think it's just because everybody knew what a fig tree was and we're very familiar with it, so he's good at being kind of simple sometimes when he explains things. So when the branch is tender and puts out leaves, you know that summer is near. I've showed you the cycle of the fig tree before for those of you that ever hear stuff. So like the fig tree, when we see these things starting to happen, know that it's close, even at the doors. And that's what Jesus said about it. So ye in like manner, when ye shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. So, and also in 30 right there, it says, this generation shall not pass till all these things are done. So, as the branch is tender, once you start seeing one thing, not all the warnings before, but I think the abomination of desolation, you will see all of it. It's not going to be a huge, long 1,000-year tribulations, 2,000-year. Once you start seeing it and things start getting real, you'll probably, unless you die, you'll be around to the end of it. So, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Isn't that weird to think about? Heaven will pass away. like you were just talking about kingdom. It's going to be something new. Even heaven, even earth. It's going to come down. It's all going to be something new. Don't believe me? Jesus said it right there. Heaven's going to pass away. It's not my words. But my words shall not pass away. No man, no angel, or even Jesus knows the day or the hour. Only God. He gave us a season. We're going to know the season. Summer's near. But we don't know the hour. And no one does. So you see all these people like... So when that solar eclipse happened, it was like 2 years ago. A lot of the churches were like, oh, the sun's going to be out. This is it. We're all going to go in the woods. Jesus said, don't have to worry about that. You know the season, but if we know, like, hey, in a week the sun's going to eclipse, we don't know. Not even Jesus knows. So how are we supposed to say that that's the end of it? So.
But if you study the parallels of the Jewish people, and those things are, the sky is the message board for the Jewish people.
They are very astrological with their calendar and stuff like
Yes.
that. Gotcha.
So, for them to study and for them to know what those things mean is very important. And if we can have an idea of it, if we desire to have an idea of it, it helps us to understand more of what is actually important.
Well, and it is important to understand more, like she was saying, because in the past, the last like 4 scriptures, Jesus tells us to watch 4 times. Like each scripture except for one in the last 5 say, watch.
There was a neat way of describing the difference between watching for somebody and waiting for somebody. Because I have said,
Okay.
well, I'll wait for the Lord to come. I can wait. There's
Mhm.
a difference. And the way they described it was there's a ship coming in. And all the men on the ship have been gone for months and months and months. And the women in the town knew that the men were coming in. And they're all at the shore waiting for the ship, and they're looking, yeah, I see Pete and I see Joe, and they're waving and shouting. They're all up on the shore or pier.
Mhm.
And there's one guy on the boat going, well, where is she? Where is she? She's not in the crowd. Is she okay? And then so he gets off the ship. His girlfriend or his wife is not, I should say his wife is not with the rest of the women. So he makes his way home, and he can smell his favorite meal going. He can smell it, and she's got the lights all on. And he walks in the door. She says, I have been waiting for you.
Yeah.
And he says, but the other women were watching for me.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean,
So there is a difference.
there is. That's a good way to explain it. So, I'm just going to repeat it because I don't know if you can hear the crowd and everything what she was saying. But, so she was talking about for like a ship coming back home for sailors, let's say the Navy, they've been gone for a year and everything. So as it's coming back into port or harbor or wherever, all the men are watching, looking out like, oh, there's my wife. And they're like, oh, there's my husband. Oh, there's my wife. There's my husband. One dude's like, where's my wife at? He can't find her, so he gets off the ship, looks around, can't find her. So he goes home and smells his favorite meal cooking and all that. He walks in the door and his wife says, oh, I've been waiting for you. All the other wives were watching. His was waiting. So I'd probably rather have someone watching for me too, in that sense, just because I've been in the military and had to come back from going with forces. But yeah, he does say watch 4 times. Made it very, very clear to do that. Alright, so that was a recap of 13. 13 was one of those really good, juicy chapters for it.
Could we go back to your first slide
First slide.
of the picture and then the destruction of...
Oh, the 70 AD? Yeah.
Okay, when you were talking about the stones being overthrown, Jesus telling them that no stone will be left unturned, the Romans burnt, it was encased in gold, and they burnt the gold off to take everything.
And chiseled it. Chiseled it out of the melted stone.
Yes, to get,
Mhm.
to totally humiliate, destroy, and do away with the Israelites. They also put salt in the ground, so
And
never
salt in the
regrowth.
earth.
They put the salt through, drug it through land so that nobody could grow anything there.
Yep.
So the attempt, and we've seen this in other situations in life, there was an attempt to do away with the Israeli group of peace, genocide. That was an attempt, and there have been others.
Yeah. 3 years later, they did it again at Maccah.
Maccabees.
Maccabees?
Maccabees.
Okay, no, I'm getting the.
And that was before.
Yeah. So this was like 3 years before that, but yeah, they did destroy the temple. Romans, like I've said this before, they're really good about like when they take over a place, they build their own walls around it. So now you had walls to keep them out. They built walls to keep you in. That was a very good Roman tactic, very scary. But those walls were still left up, and there's like the Western Wall. So when you see the Western Wall, that was actually built by the Romans. So Jesus wasn't lying, even though it was around since that time. That was a Roman-built wall. And just for fun, Google Wailing Wall and Google the real meaning of what that really is. So seriously, do it. It's pretty cool. Anyway, going to 14.
And Google them what they're doing when they're.
Yeah, that's what I said.
praying.
Google what it really means, what they're at the Wailing Wall for. So 14. After 2 days was the feast of the Passover, and of unleavened bread, and the chief priests of the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death, because they don't ever try to take somebody straight up. They're real sneaky, if you will. But the Passover, it's the 15th day of Nisan, which is on the real calendar is March or Aprilish. It's usually 8 years long.
8 days.
8 days. Sorry, not 8. 8 days long. It'll be a long Passover. So the Passover is in remembrance of when they put the blood of the lamb over all the doors in Egypt, if you know the Moses story, so that the angel of death wouldn't come and kill the firstborn sons. So nowadays they kind of babied the meaning down a little bit too. It's like, oh, it's how the time of struggle passed over and they got to leave. That's not what it was. No, the Passover was they killed a lamb, smeared some blood and stuff. So again, 2 pictures. You can pick whichever one you want to believe it looks like. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people. So they took this very seriously. Like Passover was, in their world, one of the most, I want to say maybe holy times, one of the most sanctified times to them in their religion for it. And being in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious, and she broke the box and poured it on his head. So this is what alabaster is. It's kind of like a really smooth soapstone looking stuff. I've never held it. I don't know how hard it is actually, but I know it's fragile because she broke it. And a lot of times when you had it before, some have lids on it and stuff, but some had the seal, like you see right there. So I don't think you can take the lid off the box on the left here. You have to, it's actually sealed so it's a little broke. It just meant like a piggy bank kind of back in the day with stuff. And it could have also had like some kind of significance on if I break the box, then I'm giving its essence or whatever it is, or it's like a sacrifice to something. So, and this is spikenard. It's still around. And for those that like, I don't know, they sell the essential oils of it too. If you want to know what it smells like, I'm probably going to go check it out. But it's very, very around. It was like the essence of the divines and stuff is some of the other names it's heard of. This is the 3, buds, flowers, fruits. So that's how it looks like from left to right on there. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste of the ointment made? Indignation just means like confusion or a questioning of something in their own selves with it. They're like, why did she break this expensive ointment and all that just to put on Jesus' head? He's the Son of God. He doesn't need ointment, especially all that his money's worth. For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and have been given to the poor. And they murmured against her. Now, I've tried to look up what 300 pence would translate to today. There's no way. There's like 500. People just have different discrepancies of it. Could have been like $3,000. Some people were like, could have been a couple hundred. But either way, it is expensive. It is worth quite a bit. And given to the poor, and they murmured against her. And Jesus said, well, let her alone. It's like, just stop. So if somebody's doing something nice for the church, if somebody's building like couple $1,000 additions to the church and stuff. And everybody's like, why are they doing that? And they could be giving it to the poor and everything. Just don't do that. They could be doing it for a good reason. Maybe the poor are going to start coming there to help them out. You don't know. So if somebody's doing something good for God, let's not be like, oh, well, they could be doing this with it too. It's not up for you to decide. It's up for God and Jesus. So Jesus said, let her alone. Why trouble ye her? She hath wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor with you always, and whensoever ye will, ye may do them good. But me ye have not always. She hath done what she could. She is come beforehand to anoint my body to the buryings. Jesus knows it's coming. He knows what's up. I wonder how the disciples were there, like, anoint for the burying. He's been really weird lately. Y'all notice Jesus keeps dropping these weird little hints and stuff? So, but verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the world, not just around here, this also that she hath done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her. Don't know her name, but know somebody did it. Know there's a woman that did it. She got memorized or set in stone, concreted throughout history. I forget the word for that. And Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went unto the chief priests to betray him unto them. So Judas was a thief before he was a disciple, right? So Jesus chose people from all walks of life. Judas, being a thief, has a different concept of money, and if you are around different people, even the tax collectors, even us, people that are good with money, they come around all the time thinking differently of money, and Jesus all of a sudden doesn't care about this box that was just broken. You're probably going to be like, oh my gosh, like that money could have been it. And I think for Judas, this was just kind of a last straw type of deal. Like, okay, I'm tired of this guy now. He says he wants to feed the poor, but now he wants to be anointed with oil, and I don't know. And this has to happen anyway, so I think that was just kind of like, in his mindset, the last straw with it. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. And he sought how he might conveniently betray him. So they were like, hey, I want to betray Jesus. Sweet, cool. Like, yeah, we'll pay you a little bit for it. Okay, cool. What a weak way to sell out Jesus for a little bit of money and stuff. But anyway, and the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? This is unleavened bread, by the way. I forgot to bring that up earlier, but so I don't really know the significance of why they eat unleavened bread there. Some people say it's just because that's what they took with them when they left, because I don't know if it molds slower or...
The yeast in bread, it needs to rise.
Yeah, the yeast is what you put in it to rise.
They didn't have time. The idea was you don't have time.
Yeah, we don't have time to sit
So
around
you're
and
going to make it without yeast.
let this proof is what they call it. They mix it up, the bread rises before it's baked. That's called proofing it with the yeast, letting it do its thing. And then you bake it. So, with bread with yeast in it, you can make it into a different thing. They would call it loaves of bread. They would call it, there's different kind of baked bread, shoe bread, if it's in the temple, all kinds of different bread that's baked, right? So this is unleavened. It's called unleavened bread. Okay, this is a cracker. This is not unleavened bread. I don't know where they mix that up with. It's baked different. There is a difference of the meaning. But now, and I've seen it a long time ago, Eric, when he was a teenager, he would buy like unleavened bread and leave it in the cabinet. Sometimes I was sneaking eating. I was like, these are crackers. This is unleavened bread. But there is a difference in it, and I think they just do this now for the convenience of sake, so they can keep crackers on shelf for forever instead of actually making the bread for it.
The symbolicness is the different spaces and the way it's done is symbolic of Jesus' persecution.
What is?
The different, see, where it's dark and they have lines through it.
Yeah.
There's specific reasons for that.
When did they start doing that though?
A long time ago.
Putting like the breads and the lines in and stuff? Okay, I haven't looked into that with the bread, but anyway, those are crackers. You can do that to the unleavened bread, just the same. And he sendeth forth 2 of his disciples, and saith unto them, go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. You ever wonder, you ever think like, is Jesus always with the disciples? Like, are they always basically together everywhere they go? Or do they go somewhere and kind of like, all right, we're going to go over here for a little bit, and Jesus is doing that? Because if they're all together, how weird is it that Jesus just keeps being like, hey, go get this donkey from this dude. Don't worry, he knows you're coming. Or, hey, go find this dude with a pitcher of water. Also, the disciples, I'm like, when does Jesus talk to these people? Where does he go? They sneak off sometimes? But either way, they do it as they're told and supposed to. And wherever he shall go in, say ye to the good man of the house, the master saith, where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There, make ready for us. So his disciples, as they were commanded, went forth and came into the city, and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. And in the evening he cometh with the 12. So they found the place that was already predestined for them. They all came in. So this is the Last Supper, the painting of it. I'm sure it's super famous. Da Vinci painted it. I'm sure you guys have seen it 100 times, right? Everybody knows what we're talking about with this. But here's something I didn't know before today, or before studying this. Look how big it is. Those are people's heads at the bottom on that. So if you actually order that, I thought it was just like a painting like on a wall. This is like a mural on a whole wall. So go one more. Look how big that is compared to people. I did not know the Last Supper was that big.
Is Mary in that?
No.
I've heard.
I don't think so. A lot of people try because
I've heard,
yeah.
That's your Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, Da Vinci is super sneaky and secretive and a bunch of things. They always left clues
There
and
was
stuff.
a controversy with the picture.
If there was, oh well. So Mary snuck in the picture. Woo.
I ignored it because it was.
What would that
kind of
mean,
like a
even if she was?
blasphemous- He did something blasphemous with it.
Yeah. So, but I've heard that same thing, and I've heard like if you x-ray through the first layer of painting, you'll see he put horns on Judas and a couple of the other people and stuff. I don't know.
That's it. There's a bunch
But
of.
yeah, there's a lot of them.
It's a painting.
Yeah, it's a painting. Like I was saying, what would it matter if it was? So, and as they sat and did eat, Jesus said, verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me shall betray me. Can you imagine that? You're all around with Jesus and everybody. He's like, one of you's going to betray me. You're like, oh man, dang. So they began to be sorrowful and say unto him, one by one, is it I? And the other said, is it I? They were kind of worried, like, I hope it's not me that's going to betray him and stuff. You know, Judas is sitting there like, oh, yeah, is it me, Jesus? And he said unto them, it is one of them 12 that dippeth with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goeth, as is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Good were it for that man if he had never been born. It's better to be born, never been born than to be Judas. But the parallel to that, and this one goes into a little bit more detail about it, is John 13. So I'll read it really quick. Jesus said the same thing, like one of you are going to betray me. And now there was leaning on Jesus the bosom one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. And then, lying on Jesus' breast, saith unto him, Lord, who is it? And when Jesus had thus said, oh no, never mind, next slide. So Jesus answered, He it is to whom I give sop, when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon. So it wasn't just some sop. Jesus dipped it and then gave it to Judas. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, That thou doest, do quickly. So this is the only one where it says Satan actually entered into. This is from John 13. That Satan actually entered into Judas. And then Jesus said, What thou doest, doest quickly. And so now that no man at the table knew for what intent he spake unto him. Like, why did Jesus just say that to Judas? For some of them thought because Judas had the bag, he already had the bag at the table. That's where that actually came from on the painting. But he already had the bag of money. And that Jesus said unto him, by those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. Oh, I thought you were saying, sorry. Now I don't know why teachers do that. I've always wondered. But he then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. So this is the one that says that Satan himself, not an evil spirit, not anything bad or that, Satan actually entered into Judas and did that. So, and I'm wrapping it up. We're almost there. And as they did eat, Jesus took bread and blessed and brake it and gave to them and said, Take, eat, this is my body. So here's where we get communion from, these passages. And he took the cup, when he had given thanks, he gave it unto them, and they all drank of it. And he said unto them, This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many. Again, he hasn't died yet. I bet they're like, what is this? What is he talking about? Okay, this is blood, this is wine. So verily I say unto you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of God. Back then, they didn't just drink wine for fun. They drank it because it didn't go bad. It didn't get perishable. So they were taking it around. Some people say it was grape juice. Jesus was drinking wine. It wasn't doing to get drunk. It's different.
I got something to say about that. I learned.
What's that?
Okay, you know, a lot of people use that, when you say, you drink and they'll say, oh yeah, I drink wine, and it's,
Mhm.
and because Jesus made wine.
Yeah, oh, Jesus drank wine. That's why I drink, but only
You
wine.
know, that they, it's a proven fact, it's in the book, that they have, tested wine from way back then. The wine they make today, one glass equals 27 of it did back in Jesus' days.
Well, there's more money in making stronger wine nowadays, I could
Yeah.
imagine. Back then, they did it because we needed to drink and
That's what
carry
they
around
had.
stuff. Yeah, that's all you had to
their
drink.
drink.
You
I
can't
didn't
put
think it was
water in a
fermented.
bottle.
I didn't think it was fermented.
It was fermented a little bit just
Well,
so it
it
wouldn't
had
go
to,
bad.
'cause they didn't have refrigeration,
Yeah.
so it had to ferment inside the
But
press.
nowadays, when they bottle it, they put it and store it for at least like a couple years first before they go bad. Then they stored it, it started fermenting, and they were just carrying it. was fermenting on the road a lot of times, just stored in a bottle.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I've heard people say it,
But
well,
people that
you know.
do that, and you tell them, you know, it wasn't very fermented back then, because they
Yeah.
just made it and drunk it, you know.
Yeah.
And they are.
I showed y'all the wine press where it was made, how they made it back
said,
then.
oh, no, that
Yeah.
was just learned. And they said that wine that Jesus made was probably the best one. I said, it's the best
Oh.
grape juice that's been made.
Probably because it
They
was
said it
fresh.
was the best
Yeah.
one.
I bet the one that
It's fresh.
Jesus turned the water into tasted pretty good.
It was probably just
I bet that was
fresh
the best
and
stuff ever.
clear.
It
That was
was,
amazing
but I
to
don't
see
think
what
it was as fermented as it is today, because he would not make nothing and then turn around and tell us
Mhm.
to not be a wine bibber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Paul said drink a little wine for the stomach's sake. He
Well,
didn't
it's
say
good for the stomach.
gorge yourself and
Yeah.
enjoy it. No.
But they couldn't drink the water, is why
That's right.
they did it. The
Yeah,
water
exactly,
was
because the
there.
water was stagnant. That's what I was just getting to. You can't just bottle water. You gotta take that.
Ain't gonna look good
But-
coming out of a bottle of wine.
After they drank all that, I don't want to sit here and talk about getting drunk all day. When they had sung to him, they went out into the Mount of Olives. So Jesus knew he was dying real soon, right? He was going to get beaten. He was doing all that. If you were going to die and you knew it was going to be as bad as Jesus died, what song would you pick to sing? You pick Amazing Grace? I wouldn't feel like singing if it was me. I'd be like, I'm not wanting to sing right now. I'm about to get beat up and all that. So, but Jesus, that's why he was different. Like, he's an example. So, he said unto them, you know what, let's stop it right here, and we'll pick it up there. So after Jesus sung to him, and so they ate the Last Supper, Jesus sung to him, and they went out into the Mount of Olives. So for time's sake, I think we'll stop it right here and pick up there for next week. But, yeah, that's all I have for that. Don't go.